So the social media is frightening because it represents a major change and learning new skills that we don't necessarily have. And I had to look at it carefully and say to myself, is this what I want to put a huge amount of time into? Now, a great guru in social media is a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. I've had the pleasure of meeting him at a Summit Series networking event. This guy is sharp as a tack. You can look up his social media YouTube channel that talks about it. I think it's Gary V or something like that.
Yeah, the Gary V Show or Ask Gary V Show.
Okay,
Something
yeah.
like that.
So he's got a great show on social media. And he wrote a book called The Thank You Economy, which basically explained that in today's day and age, if you give a lot to people and you're very responsive and engaging with them, when you eventually go to release a product of some sort, as their way of saying thank you, oftentimes they're willing to buy into that product. So what's interesting about that is that creates a situation where you can create a lot of free content and you can give that away and people could enjoy that. And people who, maybe they like what you're doing, but they're not so in love with it that they want to spend money with you, they can just enjoy it and maybe share it with their friends. They don't have to buy anything. And later, if they hit a point in their life where what you're teaching or sharing becomes a huge priority to them, they can then maybe at that point, they might want to go deeper with you and buy something. And then people who are serious about their development, they may be more interested in saying thank you to you for the work that you're doing and purchase a more premium product. So a more premium product could include things like better organized, maybe less entertaining, but more about the dense and very specific content to achieve a specific result. Yeah. It can have back ends like Facebook groups where you're responding to them directly, things like formal seminars that you're doing, and other bells and whistles that add a lot of value beyond what would be expected conventionally out of a free video. Now, of course, you're going to always have some people who are like, why aren't you giving everything away for free? And that's just certain noise. The internet's don't have trolls or people that just aren't able to think in an adult or clear way about this. And that's not something that needs to be, overly considered because you can't take all that into account when you're trying to be productive, right? That's just life. So basically, you move forward and you release a lot of free content. You can engage on different social media platforms. Now, social media platforms are fascinating because they drive huge amounts of traffic into people that are getting engaged. So you have things like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Periscope, Twitter, and a number of other emerging social media platforms. And another thing that Gary Vaynerchuk explains is that different platforms are well suited for different businesses. So for example, you have, say you have a beautiful girl, she has a great body and guys like looking at her pictures. Well, I'm dating girls that do this. I emailed you one of my, the girls I'm dating, one of her Instagrams the other day, and she's kind of blowing up right now. And she's actually getting offers for different products, like gym-related products and things like that, to promote it into her Instagram. Instagram plays well for a pretty girl because it's pictures. Guys can look at it, and they can, do what they want to do with those pictures. So basically, that spreads well. Or things like fashion. So one of my favorite fashion companies is D Squared. It's like D Squared with a 2 on the end of it. It's created by two Canadian twins that are fashion designers. And, they have a pretty good Instagram channel because people like to look at fashion online, right? Also, guys that are getting in shape, so like Mark Dama or guys like that will have huge Instagrams.
Travel as well. Travel's huge.
Is travel huge? Okay.
Yeah. Travel pictures, photography, like anything in photography, travel, like they use Instagram like crazy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So that's really good for a picture type format, right? Now, you have guys like Dan Bilzerian who have used Instagram also because he takes these very creative pictures. A lot of guys will hate on Dan Bilzerian. You can have whatever opinion you want, but there's no doubt that his pictures are very creative. And so he's used that medium very, very well. Now, other mediums are things like Twitter. Commonly, porn stars use Twitter. Almost every adult film star has Twitter. And that seems to play well. I'd say, I'm going to say something kind of funny here, but in a lot of ways, I don't think most porn stars, the majority of them necessarily have a lot to say. But, they can put out a Twitter. Like, I want to smoke some weed. Who wants to give me a joint? That's like commonly what's in an adult film star's Twitter. It's not really very high level, but it allows them to connect directly with fans, and they can give little short thoughts. Some politicians use Twitter. Entertainers can use Twitter. It can also cause problems because they don't have their publicists creating a buffer for them to prevent them from saying something emotional or a knee-jerk reaction. but it also has the benefit of a direct communication with an audience. So, for example, if, the mainstream media, as we know all too well, oftentimes creates stories for sensationalism or that are inaccurate, and it allows people to quickly respond to it or to make a statement or, clarify things. So that's pretty cool too. Now, the one that we've really gravitated towards is YouTube. And YouTube definitely plays well to our core competencies for a number of different reasons. One of them is that, our content within dating advice, we're teaching a lot of things that are very outside of social conventions or people's standard belief systems. So, if I'm going to say, say in a book, a guy who's not tall and he's balding can date an exceptionally attractive woman, you can say that in a book, but that's not going to communicate as well as when I can make a video recording of that and put it online, which is mind-blowing, and you're seeing it being done, and you can share that. So I can remember back when we first created Real Social Dynamics, for example, we were promoting a lot on forums, or, like we said, the book The Game, or David D'Angelo, and, I could go up on a David D CD and I could explain these things verbally, or I could explain on a forum, but I can't see anything resonating more deeply and getting more attention than somebody seeing that done on YouTube. I mean, this is a godsend for our industry because we can show things that could have never been shown before. Another beautiful thing about it is that from doing a lot of pickup stuff, we have a very verbal ability, because when you do pickup, you learn to talk and talk and talk. So we have a core competency that is built from spending a lot of hours doing a different activity that then feeds into YouTube. So at any time in business that you're thinking of what you want to spend your time with, you have to be looking at core competencies and building upon strength. So for example, we talked earlier about the mainstream thing. Now, let's say that Julian or I try to appeal to a mainstream audience at this phase in our lives. We could try to do it, but it doesn't necessarily resonate with our type of thinking. So we're always going to be a second-rate Dr. Oz or a second-rate Oprah Winfrey or a second-rate Dr. Phil. Like, me or you trying to do the Dr. Oz or Dr. Phil thing. I mean, come on. It's not something likely to happen. So what this does is, like, what we do within our industry is we look at our core competencies and say, how can we do something that we're really, really good at? So whenever you're looking at your life, there's going to be things that you've done just through your day-to-day life that have built skills that you may not even realize. One of those skills for us is the ability to talk to a woman indefinitely, and we spent hundreds of hours, if not probably thousands of hours, probably tens of thousands of hours, polishing that skill. So for us, we took that skill and put it on YouTube and said we could just talk at a camera for a long time. Now, it's a shift or a deviation in our core competencies, because talking to a girl has a response. Yeah. A camera is an inanimate object, so it takes time to do that, but we're able to do that. Now, funny enough, another core competency that we have that we didn't even think about, and this raises other points about how to develop your business, is that we travel a lot. So oftentimes there's things that you don't even think about as an advantage, because to you they're completely normal, but to other people it's absolutely mind-blowing. So for us with travel, we've been traveling for years. I mean, we love it, but we don't really think, it doesn't register to us that not everybody's traveling to 50 cities a year. Like, what? Not everyone goes to 50 cities a year? The average person can't do that. So one of the things that we decided was we'd make videos while traveling, because one, it emphasizes that we're a global company and that we're running programs in 265 cities, about 75 countries around the world, that we rotate through. Some obviously more frequently than others. Some are, very rarely. Like Minnesota, this is pretty rare for us. Yeah. It's a smaller city, but, we had a nice little audience turn up last night. It was fun. So, then we have larger cities as well. But by recording in public, for one thing, it allows people to see that we're global. So they realize, oh, they're probably going to come to our city. Another aspect of it is that it's a more engaging environment. You can record in front of a white wall, but we're traveling all these cities. That would be foolish. We're not taking advantage of the beautiful environments that we're recording in. So we choose to record, in different cities. So the lesson there is actually looking at things that you take for granted. We don't even think of this as a big deal, but realizing that other people might really enjoy it, it lets them into your world and they can get a lot of value out of it. So looking there. So basically, the last one then, of course, was building outside of our core competencies. And this is a big thing with social media that other business owners I've seen struggle with, which is learning how to use cameras and learning how to be the primary subject in videos with cameras. And so, we started off with just a Sony Handycam. And other people might start off with, say, a GoPro. And those are good because they're pretty hard to mess up, right? If you just point a Handycam in your general direction, it has auto-stabilization built into it for a lot of them. The depth of field, which is basically the tack sharpness that it records with, is wide open. So you could go back, you could go forward, you're not going to come out of focus. You just press a button, record, it's going to record. You're not dealing with a lot of points of error with a Handycam. Now, when you look at the cameras that we use now, obviously our cameras are much nicer, more professional, but we built a very significant following using Handycams. And for that reason, I think for a lot of people, the key is just start. Pick a simple camera and start. Now, as far as hiring on...
The plus side, too, of this, the Handycam, by the way, is, and this is a comment I get all the time, it makes it way more personal. It's like the fact that it is a little grimy, the fact that it is kind of like you holding it, like, hey, you're literally just like there with them versus talking through a filter of just being like kind of in a movie where there's like this glass wall in between. It's like, oh, he's just like me. Now, on the flip side, too, though, and this is also pretty subtle, guys will start and they're like, oh, I'll just start with anything. They take the Handycam and then it looks like this shitty, unprofessional shot. So be aware of the mix when you make your videos. It's like start, but be smart about it too. Use the Handycam, use it for its strengths, which is it is personal, so like get up close, but don't make sure it's not like this half-assed shitty shot.
Unwatchable.
Yeah, unwatchable. Like guys do that. It's like they show up and it's like not even cut properly. They start it and they're like, test, oh hey. And then I see this all the time on YouTube. It's like super professional website, and then the video is like, oh hey, hey, what's up?
Hitting the mic.
Hitting the mic, and then it ends. It's like, and they finish, and they're like, and then it cuts. I'm like, oh god, like, yeah. I mean, be smart about it at the same time. But yeah, just a little add-on there.
Yeah, and this also, actually, if you want to go deeper, one of the reasons that we chose to eventually up the ante with our cameras is that the topic that we teach is very unconventional, and it's you're getting into a lot of outside of typical social conditioning and belief systems that we're teaching. So the more that you can actually show, look, like, we're sharp guys, we're competent, we're out here, like by us recording in public, showing, look, we're teaching guys about dating and sexuality, we're teaching guys about success. And even though these are topics that might rub people the wrong way, we don't shy away from them. And we love them, and we're out here in public with them. People could take it or leave it. And also that, the videos that we're doing are pro. By us actually upping the ante on the production value a little bit, I felt that was good for what we're doing, because what we're doing is so, outside of typical social beliefs, right? So it shows that, sharp guys that are professional and that, have a degree of credibility by putting out such strong and well-produced content, that the beliefs that we have or the things that we're teaching, while unconventional, are grounded based on real experience, and people would do well for themselves to consider it more and to look deeper at what it is that we're actually teaching and doing. Because essentially what we're doing is, anytime in society you have belief systems that are a little bit ahead of the curve, and there has to be those heretics or people that are, willing to break convention and push against norms in order to get that out there. And they're gonna suffer the price for it. In order to get those ideas out, and that's you accept that, when you're involving yourself in something like that. But that was another reason we wanted to up the production value, I think, was just doing that. So what's funny is you do it like a step at a time. Like, we just got a little bit better camera. You were the first one to do it. You got a Canon Mark II. And I remember you got that. And there was a shot that you did in a video in Hollywood that I thought that to me looked less good because you used the Mark II. Because he hiked all the way up to the Hollywood sign, and then the Hollywood sign was blurred out.
It looked like a green screen when it was.
Looked like a green screen, right? So his girl Matisse shot it for him, and she's a camera pro. But because she used a strong depth of field with that camera, and there's more points of errors in it, it's like you hike all the way up to the Hollywood sign, you can't even see it. By way of looking at it, wasn't as nice. Just by an opinion of looking at it, wasn't as nice with a Handycam. And so when you start getting into nicer equipment, there's a lot more points of error. And I can tell you that when I first started using nicer equipment, the production quality went down dramatically rather than going up. You'd have a video with a couple shots that were nicer than ever, and then a lot of them that I had to add extra sharpening to it. There's this one video that I shot in Miami where because the depth of field was pushed to the background and not my face, we used a sharpening effect on my face to bring it back into focus. And I think at 2 minutes and 15, there's this little circle on my face because the rendering got messed up. And people thought that it's like some kind of subliminal occult message that we're sending to them. There's another thing, by the way, recently.
For me too, with that one, I remember the C100 actually we're using right now. The first time we ever used this in Miami, you're like, hey, shoot some video with this, go try it out. And I had no idea how to use it. And I was like, film, and it's just like this flat, shitty shot. And I'm like, what? And then, we got into whole color correction, editing, everything that comes with it, setting it up, like all the little details versus the Sony cam, which just does it automatically. So,
For us learning how to operate cameras, that was a decision to go outside of our core competencies. And unfortunately, whatever you want to call it in business, sometimes you have to go outside of the initial core competencies that you wanted to do because you realize that something is critical to the growth of what you're doing. So, one example would be for me when I originally learned how to write sales material, and I spent about 3 years teaching myself to write sales material. And the reason why I did that was because whenever you're doing sales copywriting or sales material, unfortunately, within that particular industry, sales copywriters realize that the sales copywriting is so vital to the success of a product launch or the growth of your business that they'll charge you preposterous amounts of money. And if you don't know what sales writing or sales, they call it VSLs, video sales letters, if you don't know what those are, you have no way to judge it, and they can put out something that sucks. They'll tell you it's good, you don't know what it is, and then you're forced to spend a lot of money on it. They can sometimes charge you huge commissions or charge you tens of thousands of dollars up front. So me seeing that, I could realize immediately, we're going to get banged up over these costs, and I've got to teach myself sales copywriting. Now, I haven't written a sales letter for RSD in almost half a decade, but that initial 3 years that I did, and we did huge launches off the sales letters that I wrote. I think I've done definitely into 9 figures in sales in different sales letters that I've written. So I've proven to succeed in that. By me spending the time to learn how to write those sales letters, now when I outsource it to guys like Alice Castro and other guys that we work with, I can actually look at what they're doing. Now, ironically, some people watching this video are like, I've seen your sales letters and I don't like them. And that's a common thing that people think that sales materials are bad, but they're not realizing what they think they like and what they respond to is different. A funny clarification with that, by the way, as far as business, is that for core fans will always have a distaste for any sales material because they would have bought it anyway. But they don't understand that core fans only makes up, maybe 5 or 10% of your audience. And then the other part is the more passive people that need further sales. They need to be given more information and to be sold to. So if you fail to create a sales letter or a video sales letter that hooks that crowd or that demographic, you can't succeed, and you will not be able to recoup the cost that you had in creating your free promotional content and then eventually the proper premium or paid content. You're not going to recoup that. You're going to lose money. So with a core competency of sales letters, I didn't have that, and I eventually built it. Is that why I got into teaching dating and self-development? Hell no. I mean, what a nightmare that was. The way that I handled it was I moved to Hawaii. I got an apartment in front of the ocean, and I studied about 8 hours a day for around 3 years, and it was brutal and boring. And I would actually take other sales letters that were proven to sell, and I would try to convert them related to what we were selling, and try to convert that language. And I spent hours just modeling it, and then from there, once I understood how existing sales letters worked, trying to get creative and do our own. The first creative one I ever did was a website called Become Transformed, and we did something kind of unique where we took pictures of the instructors that were teaching in a program called Transformations, which was the first program you ever bought.
Yeah, that sold me back in the day.
It sold you, okay. Good shit. All right, so, and we actually took pictures of our old dorky selves and then showed the evolution through the pictures, and you could run the mouse down it. And so that was a really unique, selling point. My business partner, Nick, had wanted to just mirror what David D'Angelo was doing and do a congruent sales type letter for each product that all kind of looked the same and didn't have these crazy pictures in it. But by that point, I'd done enough sales that I felt confident to throw a curveball and try something innovative. And typically you don't want to do that with marketing. You kind of want to stick with what's proven to work. But in that case, I thought it was innovative. I thought we'd try it out, and it succeeded. And so that gave me a little bit of confidence to try other more creative things in our marketing. Now, getting back to that and relating with camera work and social media, that was a core competency that I didn't have. But I built it because I understood that we'd reach a waypoint in our business that the things that we love doing, which is the pickup and the teaching of pickup, we're not going to be able to do that unless we get our marketing down. And I just knew that. I knew somebody in the company had to do it. I knew it was probably me, so I just went and did it. Now, with cameras, it was the same thing where, just like with sales letters where they tend to overcharge. I mean, that's very subjective because you could make a strong argument for just giving an amazing marketer your content and letting them go nuts with it. There's companies like Gunther Renker that blew up guys like Anthony Robbins, or they've done campaigns for Proactive, the skin stuff, and they'll blow you up, and that's their core competency. And there's an argument to be made for going with companies like that. But unless you're going to really go that route, if you can just teach it to yourself, it's painful, but it has a long-term payoff. It's tough because life is only, 70 to 100 years, and do you really want to spend 3 years learning sales? Yeah. God, it sucks. It's years of your life doing something you're not necessarily passionate about. But me and you who are artists at heart, part of the art is being able to afford to make the art. So if I'm an artist and I'm using clay, the funds that we get from having a successful business, I view that as the clay that we're then going to shape our art with. So I love doing, for example, small little programs. When I do a boot camp, I'm actually hurting real social dynamics by a way of looking at it, because I should be doing operations within the business and I'm teaching a little 3-student program. But I love it. So I want to have the money to be able to take time off to teach my little boot camp. When I spend a weekend doing some off-the-wall video, the fact that we can afford to bring people to help us with the cameras, or that we can afford the cameras, or that we can afford to go to the places, lets us do the art that we want to do. The fact that we have the time to go out and work on our pickup skills and actually have the time to do that, we need the funds to afford to do the art. So even though learning sales is brutal, to do the art, we need to do that. Now, the same thing with cameras. One thing that we've done very effectively is mastered hidden camera footage. And recently, we've even mastered getting beautiful lenses and full color low light into nightclub environments and whatnot. And this is beautiful as an artist, because for the first time ever, our viewers and our audience are seeing what we see. They're seeing it how we see it. And never would I have imagined a decade ago that could be possible. There were things that we were doing out in these bars and clubs that were almost impossible to explain to our audience. And to be able to shoot that in full color and have them be brought into our world is just like, when I press publish on these videos, I'm losing my mind. I can't even sleep. I'm so excited. I'm waking up early, just like, I'm so excited. There's times where I've released videos where I've cried because I'm so excited. The one that I did about conquering insecurities, I released that on Christmas morning. I stayed up all night compiling it, and I looked at this thing for half an hour, and I literally realized that what we had produced through our artwork, essentially, there would be people that would watch this that would come out of insecurity, because the years of cultivating that specific content, the way of delivering it that was engaging, the hidden camera footage that made the points clear and gave a lot of credence to the points, and the way that it flowed, I knew that people would watch that and their life would change in some degree. Maybe their life would change 1%. Maybe their life would change 100%, but their life would change through that, and that took practice, and it took money and skills to develop that artwork. And the same thing goes with, say, camera work, and that was one of the last videos that I ever did with a Handycam, but it was a very nice video, and you can get great videos with Handycams. And then from there, as our ability to afford better cameras and to have the time to learn to use better cameras came up, we could go from like the green night vision shots to some of these nicer cameras in the full color that we're using that are harder to use. They're harder to get into clubs because it's renegade, run and gun, kind of underground filming that you're doing. And yeah, it's amazing, right? So learning cameras for us was getting outside our core competencies. I had to spend another 2 or 3 years learning how to use cameras and learning how to edit. We use Adobe Premiere, learning how to use Adobe Premiere, and I can't tell you how many hours I've just spent sitting on Adobe Premiere or learning cameras. Why'd I do that? Because I knew that I wouldn't be able to create the type of art that I wanted to create unless I mastered editing and unless I mastered, video production. Now, am I trying to get to the point with video production of a TV series? Well, see, I think no, because television a lot of the time is not as engaging as us as speakers and presenters to the niche audience who loves and cares about what we do. So I don't feel that we have to do this like 7 seconds, music. We don't have to get quite to that point because we're more engaging. See, if you look at websites that have content like ours, but that's created at a commercial level, right? So say you have a big company and they have to hire out their speakers may not be as engaging or as relevant to their audience as we are. So they have to add music. They have to add little cuts because it's like, the video would just be like, hi there, so I'm going to talk about dating. I think you should get a nice watch and be a gentleman and clean your car.
Yeah,
And
it switches to the watch, like a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
watch
yeah.
on the screen, the car, like
yeah. So it's got the music. It's like so. Then you take that same voice and it's like get a watch, get a car, and it flashes to that. So I don't feel that we need to do that because our speaking style has sufficient emotional relevance or engagement in it. You know, it has the force behind it to keep people's attention if it's relevant to them, right? Like if our content is relevant, you know, to our niche audience. So we don't have to go quite that far, but there is a production quality that we can bring into the video that adds value into it and that allows people to, you know, like I talked about earlier, it shows that added level of professionalism in an unconventional topic, and it does bring people closer to the action, and we can just build that over time. So the next thing that we've done is we've rented...
One thing I just add to here, just 2 points. When you talk about like mastering Adobe Premiere or mastering, say, editing, it's not so much mastering it to fully, say, become like an expert editor. It's like we have cinematographers, we have people who do the editing. It's more so mastering it in order to understand what the fuck's happening.
And then delegate it.
Yeah, so you can then kind of talk back and forth. You can understand where they're coming from. You know the fucking language of the game, let's just say. And the other one, too, is our videos are longer because we're more captivating, but also because that's the audience we're going for. It's like people who can watch like a long video like this and really get into it. It's not like the surface layer, just superficial, you know, people who just want the stimulus, basically. It's like those are not the people we're targeting.
Yeah.
But that could be also another topic in and of itself.
Yeah, we should definitely talk about that at some point and maybe touch on it today. So, yeah, so what he's basically trying to explain, I sort of didn't wrap that thread, is that you can't delegate something, you know, very effectively until you understand it. So whether it's Julien or myself or Nick, who's my business partner, who is also now partnered with Julien, when you have, you know, between all of us, Nick understands programming. He understands web programming. Julien understands things like speaking or the artistry behind it or cameras or live seminars, right? And, you know, everybody within our organization has an understanding of every function of the business. But then once you understand it, you want to shrink it down to the point that it can be delegated. You'll probably never delegate it at a 10 out of 10, but you might get it at an 8 out of 10. Or for critical tasks, you can actually bring out somebody who's going to do 100 out of 10, but you can pay them the big bucks. So what we try to do, for example, when I work with cameras, guys like myself or yourself, we have the larger brands within RSD, right? We have larger brands. So we actually are in more of a position to afford, you know, if we want to hire better cameramen, like the cameraman on here is the guy from 30 Seconds to Mars. He's worked with Jared Leto. You got a pretty dope cameraman here, and that's within our budgets. But then there's other people within RSD that are equally good teachers as us, but they haven't built the same brand size as us. And so I know that when I'm learning camera work, I don't necessarily want to work with the top camera guys, even though I can afford it within the size of my brand. That could be justifiable within the costs. I try to train guys that are younger and from scratch, who I don't need to compensate as highly. And the reason why is because I want guys who don't have huge brands to be able to train guys as well. So, you know, say you have a new instructor coming up. You know, say like when Max came up, for example. When Max starts coming up, his brand is not built yet, so he can't necessarily justify those costs. So what I'm always trying to do is figure out how to train cameramen from scratch and then keep down the costs and then get guys like Max able to train them in the same way. So I'm learning how to train cameramen, and then as RSC grows and as his brand grows, we can bring in higher level professionals. So we're always growing and trying new things. So for example, we just rented a huge mansion, and now that we have these small teams built, we can actually use that mansion to create multiple new YouTube channels that we're working on, and we have the people that are trained that can build that. And it slowly just gets better over time. You can actually trace the progress of the delivery of, I mean, funny enough, even our in-field skills with the pickup stuff. You can actually see us growing in our game. You can see us growing in our ability to do seminars and our ability to record, and you're always just getting 1% better all the time. Occasionally with dips when you got lazy or screwed up, you're tired, like, you know, recording this in the middle of the morning right now, our delivery might not be as sharp as, say, you know, like at our peak.
Product launches too sometimes.
Yeah, product launch, your delivery can dip very quick, but we're always trying to just crank it forward a little bit more. And I guess maybe something we could also wrap with, I'll talk a bit about our marketing inspirations, but then also talk about people if they're inspired to do social media. So
what I would say too, just to add a few things, just if I look at my brand too and the way I built it, it's like you will have, you know, a certain platform that you'll resonate with more. Like for us, it's YouTube, but I always say, and this is something I do attribute a lot of my brand, you know, just in terms of how fast it built, is I did hit on every single one. It's like, even though I knew, like, let's just say you take, I don't know, like Periscope right now, it's not necessarily like the biggest one, But it's like, why not just throw it in? Like my whole, philosophy is like, the more you can pop up into someone's like attention, the more someone thinks about you, the better. So back in the day, like I was one of the first who just jumped on Twitter and just like bombarded that, or Instagram, or even Facebook. I created like a Facebook page, and then this was maybe not the smartest thing. I have a Facebook page that you can like, and then a Facebook page that's more personal you can follow. And I did that for people who didn't want the like to show up. They can just follow me, but it kind of split
It's
it.
actually kind of good within our niche, though, because people don't always want to publicly acknowledge they're getting dating advice.
In the short term, it's good, but then in the long term, you just kind of want to condense it into one.
Okay.
So at some point, I may close like the personal one and just keep the like page, but I just link them all together and then just like post it on all of them. It's like, and I try to post like daily or multiple times a day even. It's like the more they just see like Julien, bang, Julien, it's like they think, oh yeah, Julien, oh yeah. It's like I'm there with them, and
it shows you care.
It shows I care, and the more I can also just bring them into my life. It's like the more they feel like they know me. It's like, even here, like here we are eating, talking to you. Here I am like on driving in the car. Here I am like Periscope I do love because it adds that personal connection where it's like, here I am FaceTiming with you, answering your questions, talking to you, just anything.
Okay, so wrapping up with, if you want to do social media and also some of our inspirations, I think our two major inspirations, one was Gary Vaynerchuk, of course, who is definitely at the cutting edge of understanding what he calls the thank you economy. And Gary Vaynerchuk also has a book, I think is it called Jab, Jab, Right Hook?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a very funny book because Gary Vaynerchuk is trying to explain to the corporate world the way that social media works. And people in corporate, I don't want to be melodramatic or over-exaggerated here, but there's a certain element of like, the stereotype of the soulless corporation that just whatever they do has to have an ROI immediately. Like, we put out this video, where's the return on investment? And Gary Vaynerchuk, he's like, listen, he's like, you give value, and then eventually when you've built relevance, you can actually put out a premium quality product for the people who wish to support you. And he calls that jab, jab, right hook. And the idea, so for like some corporate big dude who Gary's dealing with, Gary can be like, okay, when we put out this video, you didn't get the ROI right away. And like the soulless corporate guy's like, ROI? Why would I even take any action if it was just to help people? I just want the money, And then he can be like, and he's like, no, it's the jab. It's setting them up for the right hook. And they're like, okay, right? So, and I pictured, funny enough too, that's like in a lot of ways for us why we're more underground, is we don't really like dealing with people like that. I don't want to spend my days convincing some, because we don't care enough about money. I think we like money to support our art, but we don't care enough about money to sit there dealing with some stubborn corporate guy like, it's the jab, it's the hook. We want guys that are just ready to learn, love the art, and we want to work with them that are passionate. That's actually why almost anybody that teaches information products, by the way, whenever they get RSD students, they're like, your students are incredible. These people, they're willing to learn. They're moving forward. They're positive. They meditate. Like, oh my God, they have social skills. It's like it's kind of crazy. So we work with the people that we love working with, and we don't really have the patience at this point to do corporate. Maybe when we're older we could do corporate, but then again we probably have such a trail of destruction from the past that we all these like pickup videos we've done and stuff. So in a lot of ways our better approach at this point is just to embrace what we've done and just grow that niche as big as we can. Now within Gary Vaynerchuk though, within that book Jab, Jab, Right Hook or whatever it's called, he talks about how different platforms are more suitable depending on who you are. So we talked earlier about say D Squared or porn, D Squared or the fashion company might have Instagram. Or and they've tried to do YouTube, but they don't have the type of success that we've had on YouTube. Or pretty girls, they can do Instagram. Porn stars are good with say Twitter, and different people can do different ones. So like my Instagram, for example, I think it's like 11,000 subscribers, which somebody with my profile, it's really not very high. But then again, I did my Instagram just by I could be just sitting here and be like, hey, me and Julien at dinner, boom, and that's good for the day. So something is better than nothing. So I kind of take my Instagram with the something is better than nothing approach.
And once again, it's like the easiest way, even if it's not your core strengths, just link them all together. Like that's what you do your Instagram, you post it, and then it posts on your Twitter, it posts on your Facebook, done within like a few seconds, and you just hit all of them.
Yeah, so something is better than nothing. But if I was to get serious about my Instagram, I wouldn't just keep doing a fucking selfie with half my face cut off.
Exactly.
I would be doing something creative. Like we do more of a Dan Bilzerian, something that shows something like Dan Bilzerian, what he does that's really good is it's preposterous it's over the top, it's spreadable and shareable, because you're like, oh, he's got a cat, 10 hot naked girls and a gun. Look at this. He's like the Dos Equis guy. And he's also playing off a trend of the Dos Equis guy, but like a real life version. So we've never really achieved that. A guy who I think would do great with our social media would be Jeffy, if he were to do Instagram. I think Jeff could do a wonderful Instagram.
You could do that.
But he just hasn't got onto that.
But also even business-wise on Instagram, it's like we could have way more little videos about it. So we could have like all these instructional, like 15-second videos. Like, hey, here's a tip. Here's the tip. Post here below. Share this. Then you would link that to some of our YouTube videos. There's all this.
And then we could do hashtags better.
Look into
But we're not doing any of that.
But
that's also because there's only so much time in a day. I mean, look at us sitting here now, like at breakfast, like, yeah, go record more videos and then drive. It's like there's only so many hours in a day, so we have to be strategic in what we're going to use those hours to do. Like, for example, our homepage is like really outdated. But then again, how many people really look at the homepage? So do I want to use my hours redoing the homepage, or do I want to master the social media sites? And probably that reflects on my part that I should have got on top of that. Maybe there's some couple hours I could have squeaked in somewhere to do, say, a homepage. Hasn't happened yet. But I try to hammer on the things that are effective. There's a book called The One Thing by, I think it's Gary Keller, that talk about if you can just hammer on the things that are really effective and create the most impact, you're going to do well. So even though there's a lot of areas that we've let slack within our business that we could be doing better, we have hit on those core areas. And that's why we have such a large and committed and devout following, is that we have done well in the areas that counted the most. And then over time, you try to fill in the weak spots as best you can. But again, there's only so many hours in a day. We're also working on cloning ourselves. So you might see us with another Julien and another Owen right here at some point, and then we'll get some of those. So, okay, so basically, so business inspirations anyway. Like we said, Gary Vaynerchuk, he talks about which social media outlets are most appropriate to your particular business. And then as far as you starting social media, I would recommend to everybody to start social media, because there's areas that you're strong in, and if you have something to say, there's no reason not to get it out there. For example, if you're a guy looking to improve your dating life, why not put out areas that you're just passionate about? If you love to snowboard, make some videos about snowboarding. You meet a girl out, you say, oh, this is my YouTube channel, or this is my Facebook, and the girls can go and look at it, and they're like, oh, and it shows like a lot of personality. Having attention is so powerful in this connection economy that there's no reason not to do it. But learning that skill set to actually speak into a camera or to take pictures, it takes time, because see, as we're sitting here recording this, we roughly know what we look like. So most people when they're recording it are like, how do I look right now?
Yeah.
Hi there. They don't really know how they look. We know how we look. Right now, we know that we look like tired, over-caffeinated guys in the morning. It's good enough. Good enough is good enough. It's good enough to ship it, so we'll get it out there. So, we do it. We're not confined by that. We know roughly how the camera shot looks. We know this is probably not one of our best camera shots. We know that it's good enough. It's shippable. We know to get it out, so our minds aren't tied up. That's learned over time. Start doing that. It takes usually about 2 weeks to learn how to speak into a camera. Eckhart Tolle, he talked about it. It is Eckhart Tolle way. He's the author of The Power of Now. He said, when I first speak to the camera, it has no life. It is not a present entity. And I do not like to speak in the camera. But after 2 weeks, I realize it is a portal of presence, and I can send the present energy to the audience. And that's just Eckhart's way of saying, he don't talk in the fucking camera. In his style. So you realize over time that you are talking to an audience, and you become more natural with talking to a camera. So start doing that. Start getting used to taking pictures. I find it funny that I roughly know what I look like in a picture. So sometimes I'll be sending women pictures of myself, and I know exactly what I look like, and they want to send pictures back, and you can see they're struggling, like, how do I look? Because they don't even know how to take a picture themselves. So learn those different mediums. And the last sort of business inspiration that I would leave you with is actually Seth Godin. And Seth Godin's written a number of books, Purple Cow, which talks about the power of niche marketing and doing things that are outlandish or just like out of the box to a mainstream audience, but that your core fans who love what you do will absolutely love and will really support you. So basically what he's saying is you don't need to go to a mainstream audience who's never going to get you anyway and pander to them thinking that everybody's going to love you in this delusional world. Like, we can't alienate anybody. You have to be willing to put out your art and realize that great art splits the audience and will get the people who get you deeply on your side and to support you because you're speaking directly to their thoughts and concerns and wishes and needs. So that was Purple Cow, right? He basically says, don't try to make everyone think you're okay, but nobody buys anything. Make the people who like you love you, and the people who don't get you just go even further outside their paradigm. but you're splitting the audience. They wouldn't have cared about you anyway. He has another one called Linchpin, which is what it means to have high integrity and to push yourself within a business to do something called shipping. So for example, when we put out this video, he taught us just ship it. If it's good enough is good enough, do the best you can within the time that you have and ship it. He has other ones like Meatball Sunday that talk about when social media is appropriate, and he calls it a Meatball Sunday because a meatball doesn't go to Sunday. So modern corporations don't understand where social media has its place, and that's why it's creating a Meatball Sunday. He has another one called Tribes, which is almost synonym for cult. And basically what he's saying is that you want to create a tribe of people who love what you do and it's relevant to them. And then basically the other one is called All Marketers Tell Stories, and that's the idea of being completely congruent to the outside the box marketing that you're creating. Another one called We Are All Weird, I think it is, and that's the idea that everybody's kind of weird or has weird niche things. So if you're somebody watching this, say that you watch Julien's dating content, it's kind of weird, compared to your mainstream friends. That's weird content. And if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, you don't. But that makes you kind of weird that you get it. And what Seth Godin is saying is, it's okay. There's this thing called the Longtail Phenomenon, which is that there's just as much media being watched, there's just as much music coming out, but it's not all one thing anymore. It's a lot of different little niches. And if you want to create a great social media campaign, speak to your little niche and dominate in that little niche. And so he has another book called Small is the New Big. So RSD, for example, when you're talking about small is the new big, we're a small company, but that's doing well within our niche and doing a great job within our niche. So small is the new big. We're a small company, but we're a big, small company. So he's a great inspiration to us. You can read Seth Godin, .typepad.com. It's his blog, and you can read his books.
Google Seth Godin blog, you'll find it.
Yeah, he's incredible. This guy is incredibly high vibration, present. You just feel inspired reading it. And between him and Gary Vaynerchuk, you're getting a perspective of social media and modern day marketing that's captivating, that's inspirational, that's futuristic, it's cutting edge, and it shows a world where you can share content and create amazing content that you share into the world. And it's a great situation for people who just want the free stuff, that just like it, they can enjoy it. And for people that love it, they can go for the premium content or premium added value products. And it's very based in the reality of what's going on with the internet. So we really love it, and we really love social media. And it's been a godsend to us in terms of the people it's allowed us to reach, the creativity the artists allowed us to do, getting our vision out to people that we never could have thought possible, getting people to see underground, hidden truths about life that we've stumbled onto and bled and worked hard and sweated passionately to share, and allowed us to share it to a large audience. And for that reason, as a creative person, we love it. And even from the business standpoint of getting us the funds to do our art, we love it. And that's why we like to encourage other people to do it. So maybe in the future we could share more on this. I've really tried to just split it out. I probably have hundreds of hours to share on this topic, and you do too. It's just something that we've done, created a great niche following, and just sharing a couple broad strokes here, just off the top morning conversation. So maybe you could wrap it up and we'll go shoot our regular video.
Yeah, we're going to head out now, but that really lays down like a solid just foundation of what we've done. I'll probably expand on a few in some future videos, but you have a lot there. So any last words?
Thanks for having me on as a guest.
For sure.